I don't really think to check when, so be sure to check your timing. Another thing that you can check for your spark is what? Basically, what kind of a spark are you getting? Is it a nice, strong, thick and fat blue spark, or is it a really weak and thready yellow spark that sort of travels all over your diode? If you're not getting a good spark, then you can't combust your gas and air mixture well, and your bike will maybe run poorly or not run at all. Finally, where? You know that your spark is coming out of your coil, but where's it going? Is it traveling down your coil wire and grounding out somewhere and actually sparking outside of the engine? This happens. So you got to check where your spark is going. Alright, so I don't have a spark video up yet, and so I'm just going to do a brief little thing. What we have here is a 93 Katana. It's representative of a lot of bikes that you see out here, or out on the roads today. Not a really super old one like my 73 back there, so I'm just going to show it on here. Your bike is going to have some kind of mechanism down here connected to the flywheel that's going to send the signal to the igniter box. Old bikes have points, newer bikes have upgraded systems. Basically what happens is your flywheel rotates, makes a connection every rotation that sends a spark, or rather a signal, up here to your igniter box, which is right here, which sends a signal over to your coils. Your coils are typically found here above your engine, and they're grounded out to your frame. They super amp up the signal and they turn it into an electrical spark of I don't know how many thousands and thousands of volts, a really, really strong spark, and they send those to each one of your spark plugs. So a lot of things can go wrong in this system. You can have wore out connections here that don't send the signal at the right time, or send a poor signal. You could be mistimed. Your timing could be off, so it's sending it at the wrong time. You could have an old corroded igniter box. You can have these connections in here, could be all full of rust. Coming back through here, you could have poor grounds right here. These coils need to ground out to your engine, or rather to your frame. So you could have poor grounds. These connections could be bad. Look at this. That's a piece of crap connection right in here. Sometimes if you find that your bike runs well when it's cold, but then it starts up and it starts running really poorly, sometimes you can look towards the coils, because they can get cracked inside, and so when they heat up and expand, those cracks become too big for the spark to arc, and it won't fire a spark. Here are your spark plug wires. Guys, make sure that they're routed properly. I've made that mistake, you know. I've been like, what is wrong with this bike? Can't figure it out. Oh, misrouted spark plug wires. If you've got cracked rubber here, what can happen is moisture can get in and corrode the wire itself, or the energy of the spark can get out and be grounding out on your engine head right here, or on your frame, or wherever. If your bike is running like crap and you hear a tick 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 tick, what I would do is turn it off and start it up in the nighttime, and you can actually see, I mean, sometimes it looks like a freaking lightning show, you know. You see all these sparks just escaping all over the place, you know, if you have really crappy wires. And so that's the time when you need new wires, and probably a lot of other wiring. Another thing to look at is the battery. Obviously I don't have one to show you guys, but if your bike, I found that bikes sort of have like a threshold of how much electricity they need to come from their battery. If you have a battery, let's say you ran your bike out of gas, right? And so you put new gas in it, you know, and you know that you have to fill up your carburetor and you got to fill up, you know, all your fuel lines and everything. And that takes a certain amount of cranking over, you know, that's fine, that's normal, right? But that will also wear down your battery. So your battery, which might be at 13.5 volts or whatever, by the time that the gas is all the way through and everything, you might be down to, say, 11, something like that, 10.5. And while that might be enough to power your starter motor to roll over your engine, that's not necessarily enough to create the thousands of volts that are required for your spark. And so I found that there's a difference, you know, on bikes. You know, one bike is different from another or whatever. But if you have a bike that will fire at, say, 10.9 volts in your battery, it might not necessarily fire at 10.8. There's a cutoff there, and I found that that's you know, that's the case. And so if you've got a crappy battery, if you've got crappy battery connections that are all corroded and everything, well, that's another thing that could be the reason why your bike isn't starting, or your bike might sputter or just not run properly, you know, something like that. So there are a lot of invitations for error and corrosion and failure in the electrical system of a bike, especially because they sit out, you know, all exposed to the elements like this. Like, here's my Vulcan, you know, it's not protected by a big fairing body like this Katana would be if it was all reassembled. But see all that in there? I mean, that stuff is just exposed to the elements, you know. My truck is protected by its, you know, its quarter panels and its hood and everything, and so things stay a lot drier in there than they do on a motorcycle. So things on vehicles, you know, don't corrode as quickly as they do on motorcycles, and that's a problem, you know. That's just an invitation to disaster. And so there's all kinds of things in here that you can clean up. What I like to do is I take a little piece of sandpaper. If I'm not sparking well, I take a little piece of sandpaper and I'll sand these connections down, slobber some dielectric grease on there, you know, that'll keep the moisture out. Make sure everything is all tight, you know. I'll clean up these connections here on this coil and then make sure it's really tight. And just sort of clean everything up, you know. If that still doesn't get it, then I might start replacing parts. There are certain continuity tests that you can do for your coil to make sure that it's you know, that it's in good condition, and you'll find those figures in your repair manual, which I highly suggest you get for any bike that you considerably like or want to keep. You can see all of my repair manuals in there. I got one for every bike that is worth a damn. I got repair manuals for these bikes and that bike out there, which is my daily ride, and these ones are just getting parted out, or their engines are getting used for buggy projects or whatever. So I don't have repair manuals for them, but the two bikes on the back porch I do. So yeah, get a repair manual. This book can tell you, you know, how to test your coils, what compression you ought to have, what your float valves should be set at, all kinds of different stuff like that. So I highly recommend it. Alright guys, so that should put you a lot closer to figuring out what is wrong with your bike. You can look at this flow chart and be like, oh my god, so many things I gotta check. Well, don't let this thing deceive you. There are actually a lot more things to check. You can make, you know, further branches. For example, valves. Are they, you know, worn? Is your cam worn? Are they damaged? You know, stuff like that. Worn. Why are they worn? Da 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 da. And you can just go on and on and on and on and on. But soon you will get down to that very one problem that is causing this bike not to run or make it run poorly. So I mean, just get yourself a manual. Just, you know, start thinking about these things real logically. Don't assume anything. Don't assume, oh, it can't be compression. This engine only has 9,000 miles on it. You know, it's got to have great compression. No, that is a fallacy. You know, don't assume anything. You know, just try and figure out everything. And if you got to write it down like this, you know, this is a method that's really helped me out. Then do it. You know, there's no shame in it. You know, I taught myself everything that I just taught you today. I taught myself, you know, well, except for maybe the method, and that Robert Persig taught me. But I mean, this is all just trial and error for me, you know, and I'm not, you know, a trained motorcycle mechanic or anything like this, you know. I'm not even specifically, you know, very intelligent. I just figured all this out, you know, on my own, just looking at this stuff. And so, get in there, you know, go buy yourself some tools and just go take it apart, you know. Don't be worried about, oh, I won't be able to get back together, or oh, I'm going to break it, you know. Just go in there and just figure it out, you know. Because these bikes, I mean, they're made for people like us. They were made to be serviced with just a couple of simple tools. They were made to be serviced by guys in their backyards or their sheds or barns or garages or whatever. And they were made for people who were really passionate about them, and by people who are passionate about them. And that's what I really like about them, you know. They're not a Ferrari that you need to buy a $1,000 wrench for just to, you know, take off the wheel. You know, they're bikes that can be completely disassembled with really easy and simple tools and through really easy processes. And so just go at it, you know. Everything goes back in exactly one place, and everything is logically put together. And of course I'm talking about the big 4 Japanese bikes. Chinese bikes, just don't even get me started what piece of junk they are. But just go at it, you know. It's fun. It's worth doing. It's a very worthwhile hobby. So if you guys have any questions, you know, send me a message. I will try and make a supplementary video and link it to this one, or I will, you know, at least respond to you and try and give you some kind of guidance. And maybe I left something out, you know. If you guys have a suggestion, oh, this is another way that such and such problem can happen, you know, go ahead and I'll put it in an annotation, you know. I'd like this to be sort of like an organic video document that can continue to help people. So, you guys got anything to say? Let me hear it. Otherwise, take it easy.